When the Legacy Collection released on July 26, 2008, store shelves were packed to the brim with high-quality collectible merchandise, which children and adults could enjoy, from their high articulation to their incredible sense of realism. And also, there was also the more child-centered Clone Wars line, which ran from 2008 till 2012, almost lasting as long as the show's running time itself. Now, whereas I won't be talking about the Clone Wars line itself, I am going to be talking about how the Legacy Collection is the best line ever to be released in terms of Star Wars merchandising, and how we will never see anything like it again. But before we get into how the Legacy Collection is the best, we have to look at what came before it, what innovations came before that helped in the formulation of what made the Legacy Collection so great. So we will be starting with the previous lines.
Before the dark times, before the Empire.
So let's turn the clocks back to 2005, the Revenge of the Sith line. Quite a sizable single-carded figure catalogue. We've got some really nice vehicle packings, some AT-RCs, some Wookiee aircraft, and your first introductions of articulated figures as a main basis. So you'd have your clone troopers, which have got over 10 points of articulation. There's a nice Count Dooku figure that also has quite a bit of articulation, as an example to show how they introduced more mainline characters with the articulation and the realism that was required for it to be figures that stand on their own merits. The shortcomings of the Revenge of the Sith line would be the fact that vehicle packings are essentially statues, and that while there was a lot of new additions made, they were just primarily based on the Revenge of the Sith movie. There was not really anything that was, would you say, outside of the prequel era. Next came the Saga Collection in 2006, which built previously on the use of articulated figures as a mainline basis, like the Revenge of the Sith line did. However, what they changed up about it was the fact that they incorporated all elements of the original Star Wars saga, and they also had a more varied selection of battle packs, and they also tried to do vehicles in a more elaborate way. So what you got with the Saga Collection was the elaboration and kind of like building up of what the precedent that Revenge of the Sith line set. So, like I've shown, there was many more clone trooper figures introduced. There was the Ultimate Galactic Hunt, kind of like side collecting quest that was introduced, where a George Lucas figure, I think possibly signed, possibly not, would be introduced if you collected all the required figures. And I think there was a mail away. So you pretty much had a massive step up in the Saga Collection. And then in 2007 came the 30th Anniversary Collection. Yet even more of a figure catalogue with even more figures, more articulated and detailed figures. You can see that the engineering and the detail was really progressing to a point which we would see would reach a plateau in the Legacy Collection. Now, not only did the 30th Anniversary Collection add more detailed and more varied battle packs, like Betrayal on Felucia, Battle of Mygeeto, AT-RT Assault Squad, Betrayal on Bespin, and the Force Unleashed merchandise prior to its release, also with the cheat codes inside. Not only did it have that, but it introduced comic packs, which hadn't been a 3¼ inch Star Wars merchandising item since the Shadows of the Empire line. I mean, wow. Why? And thankfully, Hasbro decided to take that risk, because we all know that comic packs are the rarest, most sought after pieces of Star Wars collection material that aren't the fucking original figures that are sealed. So, what we have with the 30th Anniversary Collection is a massive expansion, alright? So you can see they're all exponentially getting larger, as you can see. And once we get into the Legacy Collection, then we see the real extent to which Hasbro had put all their investments in, and how much it really paid off, really.
Your
Figures
will make a fine addition to my
legacy.
collection.
Not this time.
So, in order to get a bit of a perspective of the scope of the size of the legacy collection, we're going to have to need to know the numbers. So, these aren't exact numbers, but they are rounded up, if you know what I mean. So, the legacy collection has over 200 individual single-carded figures, including the Saga Legends line, over its 2-year period. There's Captain Nida to Baru Whitesun. The chronological coverage of the base figure catalogue is almost perfect. Other notable figures are single-carded figures like Shark T, Space Trooper, Sazy Tin, Obi-Wan in Clone Trooper armour, IG Lancer Droid, Scuba Trooper, Mon Calamoria, name it, whatever you want. There's from all walks of the Star Wars universe. Unlike the previous lines, Hasbro did actually decide to use a more multi-dimensional feature to these single-carded lines of the first year of the Legacy Collection. So what you'd notice is that when you bought your figures, you'd have a little emblem called Build-A-Droid, and Build-A-Droid was a very, very useful thing as a collector's item, because if you gathered enough figures, you can make these pretty nice looking droids, including HK50, HK47, L8A, L9, many R2 units, and I think some other protocol and what do you call them? Yeah, protocol droids. So pretty much you've got already over 200 figures. That's including Saga Legends line Build-A-Droid.
Wait! There's more!
20 comic packs, 21 battle packs, 13 Droid Factory sets to create the... Not 13, 6 Droid Factory sets, okay, to create the Dark Trooper Phase 2. 12 Geonosis Arena sets, because there was 2-year versions. There's a 2009 and 2010 versions. 12 Evolution sets. More than a dozen exclusive figure sets, including obviously the Battlefront 2 previews, exclusive re-releases of the Clone and Droid packs, Crimson Empire, training gear. You've also got the Joker Squad, Lord Malevel. You've got also first-time releases of vehicles like the B-Wing and the A-Wing, and just the Elite Squadron TIE Interceptor, just to name a few. So this is almost just insane, the amount of merchandise, and who can forget obviously the Legacy Falcon, but we'll bring that up in another point. But seeing just the sheer extent of how many items were released in the 2-year period is just ridiculous. Obviously Hasbro was going all out for this one, and it clearly shows that quality and quantity can be married in some kind of like perfect harmony in terms of the Legacy Collection, which is a very, very rare thing to happen in terms of toy merchandising. So, what else can I say? Oh yeah, I can say that the Legacy Collection's figure catalogue is longer than John Wayne Gacy's criminal record. Yeah!
They're beautiful!
So what's the first thing you're going to encounter when you're buying these figures? Well, theoretically 10 years ago, 11 years ago, you'd be looking at the packaging and you would be thinking, wow, this looks very minimalist, very sleek, futurist. Any more of the lexical set of bullshit we can throw this way? Well, how about we have a look and see why it works? Why this simplistic style of packaging works. So as you can see, we're going to start with the basic standard figures that were packaged for the first year of the collection. So you can see simple image, accurate to the figure that you're having. You've got Clone Trooper warning on there, the batch display number, and the Build-A-Droid logo. Obviously, you know what line it is, Legacy Collection. Ages 4 and up, okay? Figure plunked right there in the centre. Nice Stormtrooper helmet as a card background. Now, as you know, the Clone Wars original things the background could actually turn into a diorama. On the back, you have the images of the other figures that were in the wave. You have the visible droid factory part. Okay, so we're seeing that basically at a surface level observation. So this can be looked at by children and by adults. Children will have a hard time looking at it and seeing if they want it or not. Adults can see what it is and they can delineate between whether it's something worth collecting or not. And usually high-level collectors will collect anything that they don't have. Like all lines before it, they all come with a description of what the character is based upon and what its role is, its teleological implications of the Star Wars universe. So, what we have here is just a nice, concise, little blurb, or whatever you want to call it, that concisely conveys what this figure's about, what its role is in the universe is, and why, essentially, you should buy it for your collection. Obviously, we have to collect these other characters. Now, I hear you say, well, didn't most other lines have these same things? Yes, they did, but I think it's the formatting that is able to be shown as more effective, because, as you can see, they may be only a two duality of white and blue, but they are bold colours. Obviously, you have the Hasbro logo there. Now we have an example of an evolution set from the 2008 Legacy Collection. So, as you can see, same kind of formatting, the very accurate, simplistic image. As you can see, Star Wars Legacy Collection. You have their allegiances, with the Mythosaur skull being, a generic Mandalorian thing. Obviously, they're not going to get into the nuances of the lore with an individual packaging thing at the moment. And as you can see, they all have their affiliations on there, above where the figures are placed. As you can see, the accessories are visible. Also, you can see that obviously there's the ages 4 and up. There's the title, Evolutions there, you have the warning here. Now, another nice detail about these sets is the fact that they all, on every surface and every vertices, they have evolutions and Fett Legacy, and for the other evolution sets, it will have their individual names on them. Even on the back, where the proof of purchase is, you can see Evolutions to Fett Legacy. Then you have other languages. Possibly this is where the distributors and information, legal mumbo jumbo, stuff like that. Just like with the single carded figures, we have the nice and short but sweet brevity is the soul of wit. I'm not meaning that unironically, obviously, but you have there, it's easy to read. It gives you a basic level of information that you can use to, decide whether you want it or not. Obviously, very similar to the single carded ones, you have other sets that are available that would be available to purchase a bit more easy when they were released. So you have more images of what it looks like, and this was a theme that was carried throughout the Legacy Collection. They didn't really change the style of the packaging really that much. Now here is an example of a 2009 Saga Legends 501st Legion Trooper individual single-carded 2009 Legacy Collection figure. Now, like I mentioned previously, 2009 ones did not have builder droids, but Saga Legends did have battle gear, and essentially that is little accessories that you can use to get stuck, anywhere in any orifice of your body and possibly die. So it's a nice little accessory box, and it has a nice locker that fits in with the packaging style, and that I think is actually a very, very, very stylistic addition that is congruent with what the Legacy Collection packaging is like. As you can see, though, it's got the red and white themes. Nice simplistic image of the space figure that you would be looking at if you wanted to purchase it on these store shelves. On the back, we have the base figure stock image on a promotional photograph. Unfortunately for this one, it actually is the incorrect figure. I mean, it's the wrong mould.
What, are you retarded?
This is the Vader's Legion Trooper mode from the Revenge of the Sith, but that's besides the point, really. You have a bit of a doctored image of Appo's injury from Revenge of the Sith with a nice concept art image of an F501st Trooper, and you have a nice, obviously very short description of what the figure is, just like pretty much everything else we've seen. And of course we have, in the Saga Legends line, kind of like goldish colour, each set, more promotion figures that you can see if you wanted to purchase any more of these. At the time, you've got to remember, in the context of this, these things were everywhere, and obviously this was an incredibly popular line. Now we have pretty much the 2009 style of Evolution sets, and as you will notice, it's pretty much the background to every one of my videos, apart from this one. But as you can see, the allegiances and affiliations are still at the top above the figures. Figures are still displayed with a few of their accessories. Obviously, with Evolution sets, the accessories are stored there where the promotional image is there. Very nice, incredible artwork for this one, I must say. Whoever was commissioned for this did a very articulate job. Very detailed and accurate. Unfortunately, the only inconsistency is the fact that the shoulder pauldron is on the incorrect side on the figure. So you have, obviously your Alpha, your Fiskars, and your Storm Commando. So, obviously this is a Walmart exclusive. You have your warning, pretty much in the same place. Hasbro logo there, Clone Commandos, ages 4 and up, and a thingy saying additional accessories there. Now there you go, you can see now, pretty much just like the previous one. At the top, they have Evolutions, Clone Commandos there, where the proof of purchase is more of the same, just in the 2009 Legacy Collection packaging style. On the back, we have the promotional image of each figure. Now, as you can notice that the Storm Commando's is holding the incorrect blaster, and same with Fiskars, but really it's not too much of a big deal. Obviously, you've got to bear in mind the context of the time. Obviously, you have your collect them all, showing the other sets available for purchase. Obviously, you have the Lego Mumbo Jumbo, distributors, location, another warning there, 0 to 3, a nice triangular line logo, CE, visit HasbroStyles.com. And obviously there we have the nice blurb and description of each individual character in about 2 clauses or so, essentially each. So it's pretty much the same that you'd get with every other set around the time. Now, I don't have an example of a 2008 comic pack, but as you can see, it's essentially pretty much very similar to the 30th anniversary style collection of comic pack. However, it's just in the blue and white colours, and I think the back is different to the 30th anniversary collection one. So in terms of that, there's not really much transformation in the appearance and the aesthetic of the comic packs. However, we can actually find a substantive difference in the presentation of the comic packs of the 2009 Legacy Collection. As you can see, this is a Stormtrooper, Black Hole Stormtrooper and Black Hole hologram. So you have the 2 accurate images of the characters here and here. You have their allegiances represented by a symbol here and here. You have this sticker that says includes comic book and 2 exclusive figures. Obviously, the comic book itself is pretty much the same. And you have the number of the comic book and the number of the line of the comic pack, so it can be, delineated from other ones in kind of like a collector's website. Obviously, you have your choking hazard, Hasbro. Now on the back here, you've got the same here, Legacy Collection logo. The image, the stock promotional image of the comic pack that you'll be seeing on the backs of other ones. You have the title of the comic pack here on the line, behind the line on the side there, and you have the description of pretty much a synopsis of the plot of the comic book itself, essentially, without giving away too much information. And you have the other sets available to purchase. Now, these 3 sets are going to be used in another point, and if you know any of the videos that I've made or other people have made who are very big about comic packs, you will know what's coming up. But apart from that, there is our very nice promotional images. Just to spice things up, there's, the Clone Trooper and Commander Bogey Squad comic pack, obviously, that was shown on the back. You can see there, got the allegiances there, and there. Same format, just different images and titles, and pretty much it's just that one and those 2 are the same, and Routine Valor promoted at the back. All in all, to summarise things so that people can have it clearly noted for them, the Legacy Collection packaging style is effective for 2 reasons. Its clarity and its boldness, essentially, are the 2 main contributing factors. The format is easy to read so that children and adults can both find their ways around them, and basically that it catches people's eyes. I think that, and being true to how a Star Wars aesthetic really is probably the most effective factors of the packaging style, and why most of these figures are basically sold very well.
How can you do this? This is outrageous. It's unfair.
So an effective metric of assessing a line's quality, especially in the individual figures and vehicles, would be looking at the attention to detail, articulation on the figures, and the accuracy of the proportions and the size and height and measurements of the characters themselves that have been scaled down in the form of the actual characters, in a figure form. So, whereas lines prior to the Legacy Collection had their fair share of articulated figures, they did not employ high articulated figures as a universal rule for essentially everything, okay? Even vehicles like the AT-ST driver, pack-ins like the AT-ST driver were essentially statues, and many others, where most figures have at least over 10 points of articulation in the Legacy Collection. So it's essentially uniformal, okay? This was a significant evolution, which is most notably seen in the quality of the figures of the Legacy Collection. I mean, come on, it's not hard to notice. But articulation is only effective in tandem with proportional limbs and joint sizes, which most figures are equipped with. Even reused moulds from previous lines such as the 30th Anniversary Collection and Saga Collection. Head sculpt quality and accuracy had seen exponential development prior to the Legacy Collection, which the Legacy Collection was a beneficiary in its figure catalogue. Also, the attention to detail for most of the figures is astounding, and it's matched by other lines on such a scale, on a numerical scale. I don't think any other line has done it before. Figures based on characters that are tall or short are scaled down to the appropriate size. So you will notice, say, the Space Trooper is about 7-8 feet tall in universe, and it has a taller figure than your standard about 3¼ inch figure, say, for a Clone Trooper, or say Montrose, who was quite tall in the Jango Fett Open Seasons comics, was taller than Justin Real by about a few inches. So in a few millimeters or centimeters, you actually get to see the height differentiation between the figures. I think that is actually a very, very important attention to detail. Also, while we're on the topic of attention to detail, and while we're on the topic of the true Mandalorians, by the way, represent. However, we can also see that Justin Real's true Mandalorian Mythosaur skulls on his shoulder plates are there. He has an incredibly accurate representation in figure form thanks to the Legacy Collection. Montrose's symbols are there, many others. You have Roland Dahr's knife. The only thing that they got wrong with Roland Dahr is a visor colour. When you think about the body glove and everything else like that, it's just incredible. They even made a custom mould for the backpack and the jetpack, and the nozzle that feeds through his essentially suit as a respiration device. So as you can see, these examples, which are from, still a legacy collection, are kind of like the quintessential examples of just the tiny, minute details that Hasbro always included back in the day. You've also got figures like Fiascarata that are essentially expanded universe characters only. There's no actual images of them. They're expanded material novelizations, Karen Travis novelizations only. So there is no actual visual representation of them. However, Hasbro used their creative genius and actually managed to essentially create, out of spontaneity, this kind of like amalgamation of Sev and Nina Scarata that had been shown in kind of like fan artwork. They also gave him the detonator device that is seen in Republic Commando when you conduct your radical when Tamara Morrison says Delta, let me think, fuck it out, commence radical restructuring, something along those lines. But as you can see, it is one of the a great example to use that sets a precedent for the rest of the line. So basically, even like in vehicle packings, a good example is the ATST driver, and that packed in with the ATST, which also was the first time that the ATST had the removable flaps, because in Return of the Jedi the flaps are up, okay? Now the original vintage one only had the flaps down, and it was moulded that way, and the proportions weren't actually accurate. I think it was too short and wide to actually look like it had the accurate appearance of an ATST. So, what more can we say? That is a pretty good example of what we're seeing here. So, in as well, the fact that the Dark Trooper Phase 3, that was from the Build-A-Droid line, which was essentially a 9-foot tall animatronic war machine that also coupled as an actual suit of armour, is also shown to be very tall. The figure's about 5 inches in comparison to the 3¼ inches of standard figures. You can see that General Weir, who was also included from the comic books, is completely accurate to his representation in the novel, and the pen and paper comic book from Rogue Squadron series, essentially. So you can see coupling with its incorporation of just the diversification of all aspects of the Star Wars Expanded Universe. You've got the Yuzon Vong, which is taller, and as you can see, Montrose, the figure that they did for Montrose, his joints aren't as noticeable as they would be. And the same for Imperial officer figures, like, Imperial Scanning Crew, that's a good example. You've got the Luke Skywalker figures, pretty much all figures that aren't wearing armour. The ball joints aren't as noticeable, and they are not out of, they don't protrude. They're in accordance with the actual size of the limbs, so they don't look like they have some physical deformity. You can see what I mean. So I'm pretty confident that essentially what you're getting with this is the fact that just it's a consistent pattern, okay? There are obviously repacks, so Legends of the Saga is an example of a repack, okay? Now, that repack is, it's just previous figures that were used from, like, the Saga collection, and they're not very articulated, and that is something that works against what usually is there. But when you look at the sets like Crimson Empire and the Battlefront 2 previous exclusives, which actually was a reuse, those figures are articulated and have attention to detail, and they also, if you've watched my 501st figure video, they also added battle damage to the Jet Trooper that was lacking it in the 30th anniversary collection pack. So obviously this is something that is just, they are, if they're not creating new figures entirely, they are improving the quality and the actual authenticity of figures that they had previously released as a bit of like an updated version. So I would say that is something that Hasbro tended to not do after the Legacy Collection ended in August 2010.
Hey, hello, come here, donkeys. Here we go. We started. Come here. What is that?
It's alright.
What is that? What is that? What is that?
So for our final point, we're going to be talking about how basically most of the most sought after figures, more expensive, the most rare, the most collectible items from most Star Wars 3¼ item catalogues are from the Legacy Collection. Now, obviously they are not on the level of original vintage, but this is essentially a kind of like bonus aspect of the Legacy Collection because it's ancillary to how expansive its figure catalogue is. So you obviously will get figures that people are very much interested in because of the connotations with certain games, comics, novella. Any of that stuff like that in figure form is highly sought after, especially if it's stuff that is fan favourite material. So you'd have the Old Republic comic packs and stuff like that. But we're going to look at basically the figures that I have at the moment, which are the rarest, and I'll be talking about the more sought after and more expensive stuff from the Legacy Collection. So obviously what you're looking at here is Routine Valor. Now, Routine Valor here is the most expensive 212 piece of merchandising out there, obviously. Second most rare Clone Trooper, basically, realistic things, second only to the Bogey Squad. Now, you can see that obviously the Lieutenant is essentially a reuse of most kit parts, so it's a kit bash. But I think that the reuse of that camera that was used on the Alpha Art Trooper from the comic pack in the 30th Anniversary Collection does still fit well in the kind of colour scheme. So apart from that, the attention to detail is still immaculate, and the only inconsistency with an actual 212 piece of armour is the lack of orange highlights at the knees and ankles. So pretty much there you go. Obviously from the back they are, basically just the same. Next we have the Bogey Squad, and the Bogey Squad are the rarest Clone Trooper item out there. No question about it. The listings on eBay for these figures are just, they are to the point of ludicrous. They are just to the point of downright mental degeneracy. The prices, I can't lie. It's just there's no need for it. I mean, obviously they are incredibly rare, but essentially, when you're looking at £200 worth for a sealed set, it is bordering almost on original vintage on card. So what more can you say? I mean, these figures utilise very good moulds. Obviously the 2005 Revenge of the Sith Super Articulated Clone Trooper mould for our friend, the Commander there, and obviously the Commander Fey mould that was introduced in the Legacy Collection for the Bogey Squad North Clone Trooper there. Now the only drawback is that the helmet doesn't fit on completely, but articulation is sufficient enough to the point where he can hold a blaster without crippling himself. So that's great. That is, something that is very much appreciated. The head sculpt's obviously a lot to be desired from that. It's not the greatest.
God left me unfinished!
I mean, basically, it's just an addition to an already expansive comic pack line. I mean, it's something they didn't have to do, and it's also related to two other comic packs that they did with Quinlan Vos in them. So essentially, it's almost like a continuity piece. As for Montrose and Mariel, what more can be said? Most expensive sought after Mandalorian figures out there. I mean, the sealed set, which is, obviously very rare because it's an Entertainment Earth exclusive, it can range anywhere from 100 to 300, Why do you cost so much? Why? It has no real definitive price other than expensive. Pretty much. I mean, what can you expect from figures with such attention to detail? I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a more authentic rendition of a visual representation of a figure, you know, of a character from a comic book in figure form. So, especially even down to the blasters that Montross uses, and everything like that is completely accurate. Didn't give them any repack weapons, like completely sculpted new molds for them. So, and it paid off. These people are on them like tramp on chips, essentially. You know, you can't get a few days without some absolutely ridiculous bidding war on Montross or Mariel in the US. So, you know, eBay is a war zone when it comes to these two. Obviously, they both have jetpacks and really good soft good capes. And there are the head sculpts. They actually do have likeness to Jaster Mariel and Montross. I mean, their faces in the comic books aren't necessarily too discernible. You know, you only see Jaster Mariel's face once, so they're having to go off only that. So, other than that, I'd say they did a very good job. And then obviously we have Jor-El and Roland Dire, Old Republic comic pack. What more can be said? I mean, the Legacy Collection introduced quite a few Old Republic figures into the catalogue. Like, you know, Exar Kun and Keldroma. And that comic pack is essentially probably one of the most expensive comic packs I've seen. You've also got Foam and Trasar, as badly as I butchered those names. I mean, come on. I think you'd have less expensive drug habits than these, essentially, than trying to collect these. So, you've also got the Black Hole Stormtrooper and obviously Black Hole comic. You've also got Delilah Blue and Darth Nihil, or Darth Nil, or whatever you want to call it. So, now we're going to get into the vehicles, and the most expensive vehicle that has ever belonged to any Star Wars merchandise ever in the history of 3 1/4 inch is the Legacy Collection Millennium Falcon. The amount of accessory listings I see on eBay for this thing is just too much. And it just goes to show the attention to detail that I put in. They had the game of Sabacc in the Falcon. The figures fit well in the cockpit. The figures that came with it, Han Solo and Chewbacca, are very articulated. They released multiple battle packs that you could include like that, like training on the Falcon, with an Obi-Wan figure from A New Hope, a training droid for, you know, that kind of like stuns Luke, and obviously Luke with a lightsaber as in his New Hope appearance. So, has the landing gear, has the blaster turrets, has pretty much the size scaled down into a 3 1/4 inch scale. I mean, what more can you get? Conclude, the Legacy Collection is the best Star Wars line of all time because of 4 things. Its size. The packaging style is easy to read and people can, of all ages, can have the information conveyed to them in a sufficient way that they can have the purchase made available to them. The quality of the line and its consistency, the attention to detail, and last but not least, how pretty much most of the most sought after and rare figures just belong to the Legacy Collection, most of them. Obviously there's some that don't, but you get the gist. Now, why won't we see anything like it again? Well, as you know, after the Legacy Collection, you had Shadows of the Dark Side packaging line, which was good, and it has some good vehicles and good Clone Troopers and Clone Wars figures. And then you had Movie Heroes, which was essentially repacks in 2011. Then you had the 2012 3D release of Attack of the Clones that got cancelled. That line, that had some okay figures but was quite small. And then you had the Disney acquisition, and Hasbro resorted to 5 POA. And then you had the Black Series line that has painting issues and quality control issues and typos on the bloody boxes. So as you can see, after the Legacy Collection, the quality was nowhere near the same ever again, and we won't see anything like it again as long as Disney is in control of Star Wars and has the reins on Hasbro, who are currently losing money from really low merchandising sales. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. It's been an absolute honour if you've made it this far, and I hope that you are convinced, and if you're not, please let me know in the comments why you're not and make your case. Goodbye, everyone.